Yes, welcome to the very first edition of the Cajun Libertarian Sunday Special, where we will be talking and interviewing candidates from all over the country and seeing how we can help. Tonight on the Cajun Libertarian Sunday Special, I'll have Dennis Misigoy, who's running for U.S. Senate in the state of Florida, coming up right after this. Yes, indeed. Welcome back to our very first episode of the Cajun Libertarian Sunday Special. Don't forget to go and follow me on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. Same on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Anchor. Please help us out on Anchor. That helps get me like a cent a watch. So go to anchor.fm. Cajun Libertarian. You can Google the Cajun Libertarian and find me basically anywhere, as I am the only one. So like I said before the intro video, I want to talk to Dennis Misigoy, who's running for U.S. Senate in the state of Florida. So let's bring him on. Dennis, what's happening?
Hey, man. Thank you again for having me on, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time out of your really, really busy schedule to come on here and just shoot the stuff for a minute and see how we can help you out in getting you elected in the state of Florida. You are a busy man. You got kids, a family, a job, and still running for U.S. Senate. Is that right?
Yeah, man. No, it's a funny thing. We talked about it. I remember, trying to get this message across to people that even those of us in the LP who are trying to run for office and things, we're not like those other guys that this is their life. This is their thing, and that's part of why they are willing to go to such lengths to get elected, and why those people tend to get elected, the big party folks, because this is their life. This is not our life. We're not the ones that are. It's our mission in life to get the power. For us, it's look, man, I'd be happy to hang back and be with my family and focus on those things, but you can't look around at what's going on in the world and just sit back. At least I can't. We gotta step up. We gotta do something, and we gotta offer people an alternative, like we were talking about.
Amen. So, absolutely. You've held political office before, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Back in the general election in 2016, it was the highlight of our little watch party when we had the LP in Miami-Dade. We used to do a little election day watch party, and so as we were all kind of just sort of flabbergasted as the whole Trump thing was going on, we also had a laptop somewhere else looking at the vote returns from the county, and I was elected to a seat on the board of supervisors of the tiny little special taxing district where I used to live. It was an interesting experience, as I think I was getting to kind of before. It was really funny and in two parts, but it's something I'm proud of in terms of my record. But the first 2 years of it, and part of why I get into, I guess, why this is somewhat analogous to what I'm pushing for, even though it's at a very, very low level, very local, very, very modest. The first 2 years I was in there, I was basically by myself. The rest of the board was pretty hostile towards anything that I thought, and I was really opposed to a kind of bunch of projects that they were trying to push. It was part of the reason why I got involved there in particular. Pretty much every vote in the while I was on the board during the first 2 years, if it was anything contentious, I lost either 4-1 or 3-1, depending on how many people showed up. Any motion I made besides, approving meeting minutes or adjourning a meeting died for lack of a second. So it was a rough first couple of years, but it's something where I look at it and say, any libertarian, whoever's the first libertarian that goes and gets elected as a libertarian and goes to DC is going to be alone. Even if 5 of us or 10 of us got elected at once, we would still go there and be pretty much alone. We wouldn't be able to get anything done. It would be, there'd be an attrition aspect to it. in terms of getting through it and doing the best you can as you get through it. What I did at that time, trying to engage the community, drum up support, and ultimately inspire a couple people so that when it came around 2018, not libertarians necessarily, but I was able to get and inspire or motivate a couple other people in the community to kind of step up to run. We got a little bit of turnover on the board, and suddenly things changed, and I was able to have success. We had a slate of projects that had been approved by the board previously, the old majority. We were able to save the community around roughly 75% of what was put into those projects. There was some stuff we couldn't do because stuff already got built. Even towards the end, we, I think, did a big job in terms of bringing transparency. We used to have meetings that were 20 to 30 miles out of the district at 11:30 in the morning on a weekday. I had to leave my job in the middle of the day. I wasn't working from home back then, so I had to leave my job in the middle of the day, go across town to go to these meetings, and and I was doing that because I was a board member. The average, the average resident in the community didn't have, it just wasn't accessible. And so one of the things I wanted to do, and not everybody's going to get engaged in politics, even local level like that, but you make it accessible to people. You do the best you can and try to bring that transparency and make things accessible. So
absolutely.
So that was a big thing, and I was happy with that. And even towards the end, there was a nice little project, and I got to have a nice win at the end where we were there was a push for another project, and man, it was just upsetting everybody who was right around where they were talking about building something. Everybody was going to negatively impact. They were also against it. And by the time we got to the end of I shouldn't say the end of the meeting, but the end of that section of the meeting where the residents got to give their comments, and excuse me, the residents gave their comments, and sorry, man,
you're good.
And we went ahead, and it was time for us on the board to go ahead and decide. And as we started to decide, I had a moment of inspiration and went ahead and asked some of the supervisors to go, says, hey man, I think we need to consider the cost of this. And I'm not talking about the money. The money's cut and dry. We've got the proposals, it's on paper, but I mean the cost in terms of the impact on people's lives and the relationship between the community and the board. And look, these people were really, really upset. And there was a lot of nasty words thrown around. But it's funny, once we said that, they actually backed off, and the project actually didn't go forward. So that was one moment in particular I was pretty proud of.
I bet so.
So
I can imagine. You said you're in Miami-Dade County, is that correct?
I'm originally from Miami-Dade County. I was living over there just up until earlier this year, February, March. I moved up over here to Central Florida, so I'm a little bit outside of it's not going to mean anything if you're not familiar with the area, Osceola County. There was a funny thing when we were at the state convention and electing region reps for my region in the state. The gentleman who was announcing who we had elected as our region rep, he says, for I can't remember our region number, but home of Mickey Mouse, because we got the Disney parks over here.
Right.
And people trying to leave the planet because we got the Space Coast, we got the Space Center and all this stuff over here. So home to Mickey Mouse and people trying to leave the Earth. This is our region. And so that's how we were introduced there. So
right. Yeah. Do you get to do you and Martha Bueno get to work together often because y'all are in the same area or used to?
We did. We were both officers in the LP in Miami-Dade for 3-4 years together, give or take. I was a little bit less because I filled in. Somebody else was treasurer initially, and then I filled in after. But no, yeah, Martha's amazing, and a good friend. And she's I'm constantly amazed at how much work she does, and she is everywhere and doing stuff. And I take it's just interesting to me because I remember like the first time she showed up at one of our county affiliate meetings, first time, because she first got involved, I think, with the Gary Johnson campaign in 2016, but was thinking like, right. I think she made an offhand comment. She'll tell the story better than me because it's her story, but I think she'd made an offhand comment to somebody at a Gary Johnson event. Oh, I wish they had libertarians were organized, down in Miami, and somebody said, well, yeah, they are. And somebody got her connected with some of the guys who were on the some of the guys who were the officers for the county affiliate then. And so she showed up to on one side. We had this little meeting space over by Brickell, and it was, but it didn't take long, like I say, for her to step up and be a part of the leadership in the party there locally, to get involved in the state and just get involved in all kind of projects, and is a great voice for us as a movement, and certainly us here locally in Florida and South Florida especially, as good a representative as we can ask for.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: being in Florida, what does your ballot access look like? How many signatures do you need to get on the ballot, and when can you start collecting signatures?
See, this is a funny thing, and this is another reason why I said, and I don't know if I think it was before when we were talking about this, part of why I thought it was important for us to pursue having a statewide candidate. Florida actually has pretty reasonably fair ballot access laws, and I say that because I say fair, not favorable, but maybe fair, because our requirements are actually the same as the big party requirements. We don't have some crazy signature thing to do. If we're going to do petitions, it's the same thing if they're qualifying with petitions. But if we're going to pay the filing fee, we pay the filing fee. So, for me, the signature requirement is something like 100 some odd thousand, which is, again, it's a statewide election in one of the biggest states in the country. I think the third biggest state.
Right.
And so it kind of makes sense that that's going to be high, and it just doesn't seem quite as worthwhile, I think, the effort. I mean, maybe in some sense. I know some other people have kind of suggested it to me, but the filing fee is around $10K. So not so that's the thing. For those guys, that's nothing. But for us, that's not insignificant to raise. Now, the LP kind of raised a whole bunch of money for making a video. I guess you can judge for yourself in terms of how far that's going and how far that's being spent, or your opinion on that one. But man, I really need to figure out kind of that secret saucer in terms of getting that connection out to everybody, because, like I said, I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us. Like I said, I take it from the standpoint of somebody in Florida. I think it's important for us to have a statewide candidate to kind of maintain some of that energy we had, and to try to engage more people. Not to be presumptuous to think that I'm the guy who's going to inspire a bunch of people. I'm just trying to do my best as a libertarian, offer a principled libertarian voice, and put a face to it, and to give people an alternative. We can't sit here and say Republicans suck and Democrats suck and then not offer an alternative. We've got to give them an alternative.
Right. Absolutely. No, I think you'd be great. Now, don't discredit yourself, man. I never thought I'd be sitting in this position right here. I just started making memes. I
always look at it as I remember saying to a guy one time at church, always try to be humble unless you're in a job interview. The job interview is where you have to talk yourself up. Now, maybe part of that's the campaign too, but because you're trying to get a job, you want people to know that you can do it. But I mean, sincerely though, whatever good or bad about me, I always try and make sure that it's about the principles. It's about individual liberty and what it means, and what it has been the impact of the fact of us having a government dominated by two parties that share the same starting point belief in an omnipotent government that can do anything it wants. I was out a month or so ago at an event in Orange County over here that was the firefighters primarily firefighters and I think some other groups protesting vaccine mandate that the Orange County mayor was putting on them.
Right.
And I was talking to people. Obviously, you're going to get that's kind of a blue county, but obviously the people showing up for that are primarily Republican leaning. But I talked to them and I say, look, you got to remember, none of this stuff happened overnight.
Right.
You know, the government growing to this point and having this kind of power didn't just happen after Biden got elected. You know, this has been a slow build, and it's another point I try to
Absolutely.
make sure that people understand here as well. As I see a lot of libertarians, as we connected like on the Twitter universe and stuff,
Right.
there's a lot of people that focus, and I understand why, in terms of the mass noncompliance and focus on the local issues and things like that. And that's fine. I mean, I think that's extremely important. Like I said, I first ran for office locally. Not something as significant as this with all the COVID stuff, but you know, the point I've been trying to make a little bit as people keep talking about that is the fact that, look, if let's say we all non-comply and we're able to beat this down and they just give up, they'll give up this time. If you leave the same people there, when the next crisis rolls around, they're going to do the same thing. You know, they did it with 9/11, and you got the TSA and Homeland Security and everything that was born out of that Patriot Act, and you know all the spying and everything else that's come out of it. So if you leave these same people here, the same establishment, the same organization, and you just say, well, we're just fight it back, and you know it's hopeless over there, we're just going to get more of the same. It may be a different flavor, but it's going to be a lot of the same. It's going to be power grabs, and you know, it can only last for so long. I mean, it's mind-boggling to think that we're, you know, I don't know, what is it, 28.7 trillion or something now?
I mean,
you know, that is
more money than more money the world's ever seen. I mean,
I think it was something like if you like 1 billion seconds is like more time than now since I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of years ago. I mean, it's
right.
these we're talking just mind-blowing numbers here. But again, and this is the thing I try and get people to understand, is this a predictable consequence of the system we have? If you keep these two parties in that are, again, coming from the same place of not the question of can government do this, but they're just arguing, well, should government do this? Should government do that? There's barely a consideration. And it's funny because I've even, there was a tweet from Massey, and I like Thomas Massey. I mean, amongst Congress people, sitting Congress people, he's pretty good. You know, it's not to be negative towards the guy, but he made a post and I responded to it a couple times. And when somebody else posted as well, was that, oh, well, this isn't a law. The president can't just do this. There's no congressional approval. And I say, listen, it doesn't matter if there's congressional approval. It's still illegal. The Constitution doesn't give him this kind of power. The Constitution doesn't empower any part of the federal government, the Congress, the president, or anybody to impose a vaccine mandate. So no matter what process they do, it's going to be unconstitutional. It's going to be illegal. And everybody else needs to understand that. Now, I would hope that anybody in Congress would understand that and say, well, since this is unconstitutional, let's not pass it because we took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. That's another thing that I think about in terms of, you know, how much, and again, not to say that the Constitution is absolutely flawless in every regard, but the Constitution, if we simply adhered to it, we'd avoid a lot of these problems. If we obviously adhered to the government being in its proper role, we'd avoid a lot of problems. So much of this insane conflicts that we've got going on there. It's funny, like you were talking about, I think you made a post the other day, something about hurting feral cats. Hurting feral cats. But, you know, that's why freedom is important. Because
that's right.
At the end of the day, we are all individuals, independent. We all want to go our own way, do our own thing. Freedom's the only way. We all know intrinsically that we want to be free. What people get tricked into not realizing is that the best way for any one of us to be free is for everybody else to be free. Okay, the best way to ensure that I'm going to have my rights is if everybody's got their rights, because if it's got to be all or nothing. You can't be hoping for a special exemption for you, for the thing you want to do, because all it takes is then that the guy in power doesn't agree with you. If the guy in power doesn't agree with you, then that's it. And that's not a way to live. And that's certainly not a way that if people can live. To have a nation and economy, you can't function that way.
Nope, that's exactly right. And I use this scripture a lot, and it's when Jesus says that the same measure you use will be used against you, and that's exactly what we're talking about right there. So if I want to be free, then I need to implement that sort of mindset on everybody else, because the minute that I want to inject my morality or my sense of authority onto someone else, then when the other person that disagrees with my way of living is in power, now they get to do the same thing, and a lot of times it winds up worse.
Yeah. No, yeah, and nobody there's a lack of thinking through the cons, and nobody does. It's baffling when once you realize it. I guess it's like one of those things. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you start to realize that you give government this power, it's going to get turned around. You know, just think with Patriot Act and who's getting declared domestic terrorists now.
It's incredible. Incredible.
You know, we've got the FBI talking about, you know, treating, you know,
parents at school board
moms, you know, as domestic terrorists. But you know, I've made a point every time since I've seen that. Every time I see a post about that, is that look, targeting political enemies has been a time-honored tradition, as old as the Bureau itself. If you read about what they did, with MLK and some of the other civil rights leaders, whatever you think about any of those people's politics, it's wrong, and that's not what they sell people. You know, you see it in Hollywood, what the FBI and these agencies do, and I'm not saying there's not any of that, but there's definitely another element of targeting political enemies, and we just, you know, people need to decide whether that's something they're okay with. But for me, obviously, it's something I'm not okay with.
Right.
We shouldn't have a government keeping secrets from us and then invading our privacy. It should be the other way around. I think every taxpayer has a right to know how the government's spending their money, and every voter has a need to know what they're doing, because how can you hold anyone accountable if you don't know what they're doing? I mean, just think about what we're dealing with right now. Again, we may never have a smoking gun on the lab leak theory for COVID, but just the fact that a few years back they took away this ban on gain-of-function research funding, and then what did we get? And how many of those people in Congress who are sitting there wagging their finger, even on the Republican side, how many of them rubber stamped the budgets that funded this stuff? If you didn't know where the money's going and you don't know what it's doing, you don't approve it. It's simple. You know, I think a lot of people get caught up in this and they accept this way that it has to be, where they give and they take. Well, I'll pass something you like and you'll pass something I like. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it can't be that way. Because if you're voting for something that you know is absolutely awful or wrong or whatever, or you don't even know what it is, what are you doing? How's it going to end? Yeah. So that's, you know, if I can try to give any other message to people, you know, it didn't have to be this way, but it doesn't have to stay this way either. You know, every moment is an opportunity for us to change, and every election is an opportunity for the country politically to change its direction. But it's on us and on the people and on the voters to make those decisions. You know, as long as I can, you know, muster up everything, you know, get a solid place on the ballot and everything else, it's on everybody else, and get the message out, obviously, you know, which is, you know, this is always a big help for. So again, I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Because that was going to lead me right off into kind of closing us out here. We got about 4 minutes left. I've got your website up here, Misigoy.com. What do you need from us right now? And I'm from what I've been told from mostly everybody is that they can start collecting signatures around March. And so what do you need as far as boots on the ground? What do you need monetarily, and how can we help you out?
If anybody who is so inclined and thinks it's important, agrees that it's important to have a libertarian on the ballot in one of the most high-profile races, because as I mentioned, I don't know if it was before we got on, you know, this is the likely Republican candidate is Marco Rubio, was in the the 2016 presidential primary. The likely Democrat candidate, the most likely to be their nominee, is Val Demings. She was big in the Joe Biden Veep stakes last year. So very comparatively high-profile people. Florida's obviously been a big swing state in a lot of ways. So if you think it's worth our while to have a libertarian on that race, one of the most direct things you can do, if you can, go to misigoy.com/donate. I think on every page on the website anyway, there's the little button in the corner, but whatever you can offer and give, the max individual donation, I think under the FEC rules, because it has to be the candidate committee, is $2,900. So if you can put that up, that obviously is a game, makes a huge difference for me, but whatever you can do is always appreciated. People who want to be able to volunteer in one way or another, there's a form on there you can do as well. Probably in the near term, again, is going to be probably a little bit of this. So I'm probably going to focus on reaching out to people via phone and some other things. So there's different ways in which people can volunteer, but obviously the website is kind of the main conduit. I'm on a handful of different social medias as well. I'm on Twitter that's just my regular account, at Dennis Misigoy, at Elect Misigoy on Facebook and on Instagram, a little less active there. I got to work on finding time to make a few more memes, but get stuff to get the wheels going there. But like I said, anything. Again, the thing is the two precious resources, right? Your time and your money. So time is obviously the most precious, but if you can, but we pay the filing fee is in dollars. So so that's what we need to do. So anybody you can spare that, much appreciated. And and spread the word, obviously, to anyone else who cares about this stuff, who believes, even if they're not necessarily a diehard libertarian, but they understand that the two-party system just doesn't work. So many of these problems we have and issues in the system is related to us stuck with these two parties. It's not going to end until we end it. A third-party candidate's not going to become viable until people make them viable. So, and if everybody waits for it, it's never gonna happen. So, trying to do my part. I don't ask any more of anyone else than I'm willing to do myself. So,
and thank you for stepping up and wanting to represent us in such a massive race and in a huge state of Florida. I got one more question before you get out of here.
Sure.
Both of us have 3 kids. How old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking?
My oldest just turned 12 on. Gosh, was it Saturday? The 16th. Oh, wow. My oldest just turned 12. The next one is 9. My oldest daughter's 12. My son is 9, and my youngest she's turning 2 on Halloween.
Outstanding. We are so identical. I have a 13-year-old daughter. She just turned 13 in August. My son is 5, and my daughter turned 2 in May.
There you go.
And so almost right in line. Soon as we get out of here, where are you headed to?
Taking my kids to a church activity. The 2 older ones got stuff going on, so I need to get out, see if I can get there on time, or at least close enough to it.
Family man, working man, hard working on the ballot, hard working for libertarians. Dennis, thank you so much, my friend. I will catch back up with you again as we ease up closer to your race, and I'll have you on again if that's okay with you.
That's great, man. Thank you. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dennis. Go have a great time tonight, man.
All right, man. Have a good evening.
All right. Later. Bye. Yes, indeed. Misigoy.com. Go check it out right now. Fill out the volunteer form. Donate whatever you can. $5 is $5. If 10,000 people pitch in $5, well, you get the math. If you get 150 people, $10, there's the math. Boots on the ground. We need signatures, everything that we can do to help Dennis out. He's obviously got a full plate like most of us do because most of these gigs aren't paying. And so he's got a job. He's got a family and kids and a very smart, intelligent, and bold leader for our movement. So please go check him out, DennisMisigoy.com, and let's get this man into office. He's obviously running basically just against Marco Rubio because Florida has turned pretty red, and that guy kind of dominates that state. So we got to get him up there against Marco Rubio. I have no question that all of you are going to pull your weight, including me, and we'll have him on the ballot in the best shot at making an impact in the state of Florida with him and with Martha Bueno. Matt Wright's down there. So many magnificent people. We can turn libertarian gold. We can turn them gold, but we can't do it without each other's help. So thank you, Dennis, very much for coming on this very first special edition of the Cajun Libertarian Sunday Special. So I will see you same Cajun time, same Cajun channel. Thank you very much. I love y'all, and I am out.